Today we wanted to talk about why what was talked about on Wednesday mattered. So why? Where do we go from here? Joining us on the phone right now from Washington, D.C. is Alana Goodman from the Washington Free Beacon. Alana, welcome on to the Michael Coolidge Show.
Michael, thanks for having me.
Yes. So let's recap, if you will, for our listeners, how we got to this week. And please, I know you've been covering this a lot more in detail than I have, or anyone else for that matter. So stop me if I get anything wrong here, or I miss a key point of fact. Will you do that for me?
Sure. Okay.
All right. So on September 11th, 2012, 4 Americans killed in Benghazi, including the ambassador to Libya. First time one of our ambassadors is killed, I believe, since 1979. It's known right away, very, very shortly after, that it was an Islamist terrorist attack. Talking points are created on September 14th that say as much by the CIA. Stephen Hayes in the Weekly Standard chronicled that. On September 15th, which is a Saturday, those talking points are changed, and the references to terrorism and Islamic terrorism have been removed from these talking points. On September 16th, Sunday, Susan Rice goes on all the talk shows, says that these attacks were about this internet video, this trailer for this anti-Islamic internet video, and there's no indications that it has anything to do with terrorism or anything like that. It's a reaction to the video, spontaneous attack. Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, parrots this at an airport where coffins were being sent back to the United States. She says the same thing. It's about a video. Barack Obama, the president, in a Univision interview, says the same thing. It's about the video. February 2013, Hillary testifies, this was messy. We didn't know what was going on. At this point, what difference does it make? 4 Americans are dead. Who cares if they were out for a stroll or they wanted to attack somebody? What difference does it make? Which brings us to this past week's hearings. How am I doing so far? I know it's a very
Yep,
short...
you got it. Yeah, that was good. So the hearings this week, which are, I believe, very damaging for the administration, not just because they contradicted the statements and the administration's narrative, but also I think that one of the surprises from the hearing was how emotional it was when you saw Gregory Hicks, who is the deputy to Ambassador Chris Stevens, when he gave kind of the blow-by-blow of what was happening while he was in Tripoli talking to Chris Stevens, and he was choking up while he was talking about this. I think that really damages the administration's narrative that it's been trying to put out, that this is all just a political attack by Republicans, that raising any questions about Benghazi, about any of the contradictions, is all political games that Republicans are trying to play.
And tell our listeners again why these guys didn't testify in February.
Yeah, well, these guys, they consider themselves whistleblowers. So and Gregory Hicks had said that he felt that he was being intimidated by other people at the State Department, that he was being discouraged from testifying or from talking about this publicly.
And it is he was effectively, in his own words, demoted, right, or not sent to he was not promoted. He feels like that there was he's received blowback from his testimony, or even saying that he was going to testify about this already, right? That's
what he said. He said that after he started raising questions about the State Department's response to the attack, that he got chewed out by Beth Jones, who's the acting Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs. She said that she didn't know why anybody would want him back in Tripoli. So then after that, he said, I've been effectively demoted, is what he said during his testimony. He was now working at a desk job. So that's going from, being Chris Stevens' deputy.
So you've had a good day or so, more than a day, and Washington has had a day to digest all of this and talk about it. What happens now? Where do we go from here? Now that people, I mean, I already see House Democrats trying to diminish the testimony that was given by these State Department officials. These aren't like experts or something that they flew in who have nothing at all to do with Benghazi. No, some of these guys were there actually in country. You talked about the most emotional part of the testimony from Wednesday was the opening testimony by Eric Nordstrom. Talking about his friends, his colleagues. I mean, listeners, imagine anyone who you work with, who you like who you consider a friend, who you enjoy seeing every day, or at least talking on the phone with every week, or whatever. Imagine if they were murdered by terrorists in a place that you aren't that far away from, and imagine even worse that you talked with them. This was the Gregory Hicks phone call, that you talked with them in a situation where it's possible if different choices were made, they could have been saved. They could have been kept alive. This wasn't some accident. They didn't get in a car wreck and you found out about a tragedy later. What we know about
this is what I'm saying. I mean, I think that this really makes it difficult for the administration to keep saying, and for Democrats to keep saying, that this is just a political witch hunt by Republicans, because when you heard these guys testify, I mean, these are long time Foreign Service officials. Hicks was praised by President Obama in a letter after the attack, and these are not super partisan guys.
Yeah. So, and one of the most disturbing things, my wife brought this up to me yesterday, and my wife is not political at all. She tries to keep an open mind about whatever's going on, but she said when they were, I think someone on TV was replaying Hillary Clinton's testimony in February, where she said, at this point, what difference does it make? She said, imagine if 8 months from now, let's say the Boston terrorists were never caught, and 8 months from now, somebody from Boston or any government official said, 4 Americans in Boston are dead. At this point, what difference does it make? Who cares if it was a bunch of Saudi hoodlums or if it were terrorists? We need to find out what happened. I mean, that makes no sense at all. Yeah. Of course you want to know. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And I think that's why that one line has blown up so much, because it's ridiculous. People see that and they say, this is absurd. Of course it makes a difference. It makes a difference in how you investigate after the attack. It makes a difference in figuring out, if you say we're going to go after people and we're going to bring these people to justice, then that absolutely makes a difference.
Yeah, you're do that. Matthew Continetti, the founder and editor of Washington Free Beacon, has a great piece today that talks about the similarities between the Boston terrorist attacks and the Benghazi attacks and deaths. And I mean, it's just it's a symptom of how this administration constantly wants to downplay the threat of terrorism, right? And that's what this is all about.
When the administration was putting out, I think it was only anonymously that it was putting out that, these Boston bombers, this was just kind of a lone wolf thing. I mean, this was way too soon to tell. They were saying this, within days after the Boston attack. And obviously you just don't know at that point. When you're working on these investigations, it could take a long time to figure out whether or not this was a kind of a lone attack that had no connection to anything else, or whether, these people were in touch with a terrorist organization.
In your opinion, as you consider yourself as a Washington journalist, the right moniker for you, Alana Goodman?
Sure.
Okay. I assume you read the Stephen Hayes piece, the original one that talked about that actually laid out the talking points and showed where they were lined through and scrubbed. I mean, is that point right there the smoking gun, if you will, that we knew early on that these were terrorist attacks? And I mean, heck, I remember in October it being a huge, siren headline on the Drudge Report that something like they knew or we knew. This was even known back then, but Stephen Hayes, and he might not even be the original guy who discovered these actual documents and emails that show this, but he highlighted it in his piece in the Weekly Standard, that...
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's it, right?
When you say smoking gun, Jonathan Karl has an article out this morning about how the talking points actually underwent 12 revisions. So I think this is just, there. In terms of one smoking gun, I don't know about that, but the shoes are continuing to drop. And Stephen Hayes' piece was that was really huge revelations in that. And I think that Karl also has. And
Jonathan Karl, for our listeners, remember, he's an ABC journalist. Stephen Hayes, let's be clear, I mean, he comes from a right-of-center perspective, and the Weekly Standard, of course, is a conservative magazine. All of his facts are undisputed. Everything he talks about is 100% true right now. There's no evidence to the contrary in his piece. Jonathan Karl is from ABC News. Jonathan Karl is as mainstream as you get. And that's been, finally, Alana Goodman, kind of the most frustrating thing, I think, for a lot of people about this is that the mainstream news, in a lot of ways, has not covered this or did not during the final weeks of the election because for whatever reason, they deemed it not newsworthy. But there has been some good reporting by mainstream outlets. There's a clip of Anderson Cooper the night of the attack on CNN saying that it was an Islamist terrorist attack. Heck, CNN itself was there before any State Department officials were there in the aftermath. The CNN reporter on the ground, they're physically finding the ambassador's diary. And I know. Yeah,
there has been some great reporting. I mean, Cheryl Atkinson has.
Yes, CBS News.
Great at CBS. Mark Hosenbaugh at Reuters did some excellent reporting on this from the beginning. And Eli Lake at Newsweek has also been one of the best. So there have been some great people in mainstream outlets who have been reporting on this. I think that the problem so far, and what we saw during the election, was that the political media didn't pick it up. It wasn't treated as a political story or as a part of the campaign.
Yeah. And who knows? I mean, it's easy to in hindsight say, oh, if the media did their job a little better, this might have changed the election of 2012, the re-election of Barack Obama, and then people say, oh, well, then this is all about politics, isn't it, you right-wing conservatives? You just didn't want him to get reelected, but no, that's all done. President Obama was reelected. Hillary Clinton is no longer the Secretary of State. She was at the time, though, and we need to find out what happened. This isn't any longer about a president's reelection campaign. This is a fact-finding mission, which is what I assume any congressional investigation is about. And that's my final question for you. Where do we go from here? Are they going to call Ambassador Susan Rice in these hearings next week? What is the latest in Washington on where this Benghazi stuff is going?
Well, this is just, the hearings just resumed, so there's going to be more from this, and I'm sure that there are more shoes that are waiting to drop on this. As I said this morning, Jonathan Karl just had that story about the 12 revisions and the talking points. So
12.
I have a feeling we're going to be seeing kind of a drip of stories like this over the next couple of weeks.
Well, the Washington Free Beacon is a fantastic resource for a lot of this, and Alana Goodman's been doing some outstanding reporting on this. Anything else, Alana Goodman, you would like to add about this before we say goodbye?
Yeah, just keep watching this, and we'll see where it goes.
Where are you from originally? What's your story? You've not been on the show before either.
Yeah, I'm actually originally, I went to University of Massachusetts in Amherst, and I moved to Washington, D.C. 3 years ago.
Ah.
I've been at the Washington Examiner. I've been at Newsbusters, Commentary Magazine, and now the Washington Free Beacon. All
fantastic websites, and in some cases, real, actual physical paper. And we are fellow Massachusetts college attendees. I'm a Boston University grad. So go Minutemen, right? You Mass Amherst or Minutemen, right?
Yeah, they're the Minutemen.
That's right. All right, Alana Goodman, we appreciate your time today. Have a good weekend, and we hope to have you back on the Michael Coolidge Show in the future.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me, Michael.
All right. More on this after this on the Michael Coolidge